Mr. President, I'd also like to continue the discussion on the urgent supplemental and the crisis. Many people call it the crisis at our border. Well, we have a surge of children at our border because of the crisis in Central America. The crisis is in Central America, creating a surge of children desperately coming across our borders to seek political asylum. And I would hope that when we look at this urgent supplemental, we understand what we are trying to do in it. Yes, provide humane care of the children, real support for judges and other legal assistance to determine their legal and asylum status, and at the same time to do the prevention in Central America by going after what is the surge all about. And the surge is about the escalating narco-criminal-driven violence in these countries. And Mr. President, people will say, well, what does that mean? It means this, that when you look at where the children are coming from, they're not coming from every country in Central America. They're coming from 3 countries in Central America. They're coming from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. But they're not coming from Nicaragua, and they're not coming from Panama, and they're not coming from Costa Rica. Why is that? The reason it is that the violence rate is not as high. Yes, in these countries, particularly in Nicaragua, the poverty rate is the same as the other 3. So why are they coming? They're coming because of the violence. And this is what we need to be able to deal with. Last week, along with many senators, I met with the ambassadors from the 3 countries of Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. At the invitation of Senator Menendez of the Foreign Relations Committee, the chair of it, I met with the president of Honduras, the president of Guatemala, and the president of El Salvador to talk about these issues, to say, what is it that we need to be able to do to deal with these issues? And this is what they talked about. They talked about the violence coming from the drug cartels and organized crime. Organized crime, drug cartels, fueled by America's insatiable demand for drugs. They have worsened in these 3 countries. Then the recruitment of the narco criminals have gone after the children to recruit them, either for their profit or for their pleasure. I have to talk about this in a way that civilized people shouldn't have to hear that this is going on against children in our own hemisphere. This is our own hemisphere. And when I talk about the recruitment of children for profit or for pleasure, that's exactly what they're talking about. To recruit the children to be part of gangs, violent gangs. The gangs to engage in narco-trafficking, to engage in extortion, to engage in murder, to engage in intimidation. This is the particular targeting of boys. The particular targeting of boys to recruit them for the gangs. And if the boys don't want to join the gang and they resist, they hide, they try to run away, they're often grabbed, many sometimes kidnapped, threatened with torture, or their mother or their grandmother or their sister is threatened with either death or violent sexual attack. All sexual attack is violent, but they talk about it in ways that I will not discuss on the Senate floor. And then there's the recruitment for profit. Yes, to make sure that maybe they're couriers for the drug trade, but also to recruit, nab, or force young children to be in involved in human trafficking and sexual slavery. Well, we've got to deal with this. We've got to stop the violence with the tough battle. We have to go after the cartels. And we have to also really begin to deal seriously with our addiction to cocaine and to heroin. When you talk to the president of Honduras about the drugs in his own country bound for the United States, he talks about how the children that they smuggle drugs and they smuggle children along the same trade routes. It's good trade to traffic in drugs, and it's also good trade to traffic in women and children. You see, to drug dealers, to the narco traffickers, to the 7 organized crime units, and yes, we know who they are and where they are. We just need to marshal the resources of our country and the hemisphere to go after them. We know who they are, where they are, what they do, and how they do it. They look at women and children, boys as well as girls, as commodities to be sold across countries and across borders. My God. And we want to blame the children. We hear, let's send them back. Send them back to what? This is why these children are on the go. This is why these children are on the march. And the children don't care how they get there as long as they escape the violence. This is why we have included money of over $112 million to the Department of Homeland Security for enforcement. No, not National Guard at our border, but really moving assets to Central America to work to deal with law enforcement, to strengthen the courts, and to be able to deal with the issues of narco trafficking and organized crime in that own country. We also know that while we're doing this type of intervention down there to go after the smugglers, coyotes, and human traffickers, we also need to deal with the fact that when these children are here, they have the right to seek legal asylum. Now, as Senator Feinstein pointed out, there are only 240 immigration judges in the country. The fact is that there is a backlog of over 100,000 cases. These kids move to the front of the line, but even if they move to the front of the line, it could be as much as 2 or 3 years before their cases are held. This is not right. It's not right for them, and it's not right for our country. So I have more money in this bill for more immigration judges to resolve the asylum cases, additional legal representation for the children, including bilingual representation, and the kind of backup and support where pro bono lawyers are coming to the aid to be able to do this. I hope we pass this supplemental so we could do this. Second, I made the trip to the border. I will talk about this on another day. I know that my time is exceeded, but what I wanted to emphasize today was why these children are coming, the legal services we need to present here, and I look forward to talking more about this. I know my time is up, and I do want to be courteous to my colleague from the other side of the aisle. So, Mr. President, let's pass this. Let's pass this bill. Let's do the interdiction in Central America, and let's enforce our laws here and provide the legal representation the law requires. Mr. President, I yield the floor.